Hello, this is Emma Brinson and Susie Ronk with the Linton-Stockton Student Press, here with
Kim Oliphant Smith.
It's very nice to meet you, and thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Okay, so what was it like in Linton when you were growing up?
Oh my goodness, that's a great question. I loved growing up in Linton. It was a very small town, which I'm sure you would think it still is, but it was a very small town back then. And in fact, in my graduating class, we had all of 92 students. But we lived in kind of the downtown area on Vincennes Street, and my father was the basketball coach and a teacher. In fact, I had him as a teacher a couple of times, which was interesting. But it was a very successful small town. The coal mines were operating. People had jobs. They had good jobs. It was a very prosperous community. And it was really a great place to grow up. We could ride our bikes. Everyone felt safe. No one locked their cars or their doors. It was a wonderful experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
What did you like to do for fun whenever you were growing up?
What did I like to do? Well, I was pretty social, so I liked to do anything as long as it was with my friends. We would, once we got a little bit older, the hot spot in town was the teen canteen. And that was for teenagers to go on Friday and Saturday nights, and they would have a live band, and everyone would dance. And that was the place to be, the teen canteen.
How does Linton compare now to what it was like when you were growing up?
That's a tough question probably for me to answer because unfortunately I don't get down home all that much anymore. My parents are both deceased. I still have friends there, but I'm not down there a lot so that I can really see it firsthand. But I think it's holding its own. The life of small towns in most states, certainly Indiana, has been difficult. A lot of the coal mines have closed. I think the economy has struggled in Linton, in Greene County, and in most of Indiana. Jobs are hard to come by. So, I do see a difference. The downtown area doesn't look the same. Of course, now there's the big box store, the Walmart outside of town that people go to. But I remember growing up, going downtown, that was the place to be. And there were shops and restaurants, and now that just isn't the case. And I'm kind of saddened to see that.
We found through our research that your father was a successful coach at Linton. Do you think that his success inspired you to reach for greatness?
Oh, I think it absolutely did. My father was a fantastic man, fantastic father. He was a coach. He coached basketball and baseball at Linton. And he was very competitive. And, of course, you have to be when you're the coach of teams like that. You have to be competitive, and you have to instill that in your players. But I learned at a pretty early age that you needed to be competitive in this life, and especially if you were going to be successful. And that while winning isn't everything, there's a saying that goes, winning isn't everything, but wanting to win is. And so I think that's really the key. Whatever you do, you have to really want to win. And I always saw that in my father. He had extremely high expectations of his team. He had very high expectations of me, but that served me really well in my life.
Was there anything he said or did that still inspires you to this day?
The thing about my father probably that inspires me pretty much every day is that he was all about people and relationships. And with his students, when I do go back to Linton and people hear that Tom Oliphant was my father, I always hear, he was my favorite teacher. I loved him. And the students, the athletes that he coached, they would always say he was my favorite coach. He taught me so much. And he was the kind of person that students and his players would come back to visit long after they graduated from high school, just to visit him and talk to him and tell him about how their life was going. And so it really taught me how important people are And if you're going to be successful, boy, you can't do it alone. You have to have people around you, and you have to care about them, and then they'll care about you, and that's how success is born.
Were there any other role models or influences whenever you were growing up besides your father?
Well, of course, my mother. I can't leave her out. She was the consummate mom, and she didn't work outside the home, as was very traditional in that day. But she kind of kept the home steady so that my dad could go out and do his thing. So she was very smart. She gave me my wings so that I could go try things, and always had confidence in me. So I would have to say my mom as well.
What was difficult about moving from Linton to Indianapolis?
Well, I had a stop along the way. I did my undergraduate degree at Indiana State. So I had a little bit of a buffer between Linton and Indianapolis. So I was at Terre Haute for my college career. Then I came to Indianapolis and acquired my law degree at the law school here, and then, of course, have worked and lived here ever since. It's a different world. And, you know, as with most things, there are pros and there are cons. I love the city. There's a lot to do, a lot of diversity, a lot of opportunity. But, you know, I love the small towns. I love the small towns in this state. We do a lot of business in all the small towns around all 92 counties in this state. So it was probably an adjustment, but probably having those few years in Terre Haute, Indiana, helped, you know, kind of bridge that gap just a bit.
Is there any experience you've had growing up in Linton that makes you better suited for your job than growing up in the city?
Absolutely. Linton, and in particular the schools in Linton, they did so much for me. And that's not just a spin. I'm saying that very, very sincerely. Being in a smaller school allows you, and I hope you all are seeing this as well, but it allows you to have all sorts of opportunities, and it allows you to learn how to be a leader. And you know, I did a lot of different things, from being a cheerleader for a couple of years to being the editor of the school yearbook, being a class officer, you name it, and I kind of did it. The school plays, and all of those experiences can build. They can provide you with, again, the ability to work in teams, be a leader so that people want to follow you, and also so that you have opportunities to be up in front of people. And so then when you have to do that as part of your job, it's not the first time, and you're an old pro at it by then.
Okay. You said before that you acquired a law degree here. What inspired you to become a lawyer?
You know, that's a tough question for me to answer, and I get that question all the time, and I don't have a real good answer for it. I wanted to be a lawyer since as long as I can remember. It just fascinated me, and I always loved social studies. I loved history. I loved learning about the judicial system. I loved people. I loved learning about, just the legal system. I loved political science. I loved politics, still do to this day. So it all just sort of came together when I thought about becoming a lawyer. So I don't really have a great answer for it. It's just that I always wanted to be a lawyer.
Were there any other careers that you thought about pursuing? Well,
yes. My undergraduate degree is in social science education, secondary ed. I obtained that degree really as kind of a backstop, just in case I went to law school and I decided maybe this isn't for me, I'm not liking it after all, or maybe my money would run out before I got my degree. So I wanted to have something, a degree that I could go out and actually get a good job in an area that I was interested in. And of course, with my father having been a teacher, my brother also is a teacher, was a teacher before he retired, I decided to go ahead and get my secondary ed teaching degree.
What were some of your other jobs before you started working for Indiana Farmers Mutual?
Well, I can start with my very first job. I think I was all of 13, and I worked at the Tasty Freeze in Linton, Indiana, for 60 cents an hour. And my biggest tipper was my father, who would come down and buy a milkshake and give me a quarter tip. I also worked one summer at the Linton Pool. I worked at several different places in Linton, including the People's Trust Company Bank. I've had, of course, numerous waitressing jobs as I've tried to earn money getting through school. So I've worked a lot in my life. After law school, my first real job as part of my career was as a claims attorney for another insurance company here in Indianapolis. I was a claims attorney for them for 10 years. Then I was promoted to general counsel. I was there for another 10, and then I moved here to Indiana Farmers, and that's been 17 years ago.
How did some of your other jobs help prepare you to work for here?
Good question. I think, first of all, any job helps prepare you for your career. All jobs are good jobs. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're serving food to people. It doesn't matter. It's all good. And everyone should try to take away every experience that they possibly can. I think, first of all, jobs, even like waitressing, those are great jobs because they teach you how to deal with people and customers and what people expect and how you can relate to them. So all of my jobs have really helped me get here. It's been sort of a winding road. Certainly the job that I took right out of law school as claims attorney allowed me to really learn the business of insurance. And that's probably been the most meaningful job for me because that's where I learned the business that I'm in right now.
Did you ever think pursuing a career in law would eventually lead to you being the president of a company?
No, I didn't. I was never really sure what I intended to do with a degree in law. But the great thing about a legal degree, a legal career, is that it can open so many different doors. Being a lawyer, of course, you can practice law. You can practice all sorts of law, criminal law, corporate law. You can work in business. You can become a professor. You can get into politics, governmental affairs. You can do so many different things with a legal degree. So I really didn't know where my course would lead.
What was challenging about moving up in the company?
I think what's been maybe challenging, although I've had such a good career that I feel so blessed and thankful for everything that's happened to me. And I've had quite a bit of luck along the way, and I think you always have to hope that you have some of that. But I guess I'll go back to when I started my career as an attorney with this other insurance company in 1980. It was unusual back then for a woman to be an attorney. And it was unusual for a woman to have a leadership position in a business, in a company, especially in a financial institution like an insurance company. So there were many years, and of course it's a different world today, fortunately, but back then things were different. And I think along the way I have some battle scars from that. I think I also had some opportunities that came my way because of that. I can't deny that. So probably 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. But that has been a challenge, and when I think back over my career of 36 years now, that's been something that I can really see how the world has evolved, thankfully so.
Did it take a lot of sacrifice to be where you are today?
Yes. Yes, it has. It's been a lot of hard work. And that's one of the things I try to tell young folks getting into any business or any career. It's all about hard work, first and foremost, and you have to feel good about it. And you can't complain that you're working harder than Susie or Johnny next to you. You better be working harder than Susie and Johnny next to you. That's what it's all about. So yeah, there have been sacrifices, a lot of long hours. I have children, I have a family. I elected to work while my children were growing up. That worked out, I think, just fine. I know that's not a choice that a lot of people make, but that was the choice that I made. Whether I would term that a sacrifice, I'm not sure I would, but it was a choice. But I think mostly it's a lot of hard work.
Like you just said, you raised a family here. Besides being a company leader, you've also raised a family here. What was hard? Was it hard to be a mom while you were trying to rise to the top of your company?
Yes, it was. And I don't think I could have done it without, first of all, having a husband who also is an attorney, who was very, very supportive. And we both understood and had agreed going into it that it had to be a total partnership. And so when one of our kids needed something, one of us had to fly out of the door and go deal with that, and with a smile on our face. And half of the time that would be me, and half of the time it was my husband. He equally shared with me in that. We also fortunately had a lot of friends and family that helped us, and that's important. So it was tough, especially in their early years, but I think they turned out just fine.
What do you think would have been different about raising a family in Linton?
Well, again, it's a little bit hard for me to answer because I haven't lived in Linton for a long, long time. I think one of the things that I think is different is, as my sons were growing up, so often they would say, "Oh, I'm so bored. There's nothing to do." Nothing to do in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I would say, growing up in Linton, it wasn't like we had all sorts of things to go to. We had the Cine, one theater. There was a skating rink in Bloomfield. But there wasn't a lot of those kinds of things. We had to make our own fun. We would get together in groups and we would dance, we would play cards, we would play games, we would ride our bikes, we would go to basketball games and football games. But we had a lot of friends and we made our own fun. And I think really that's so good for kids. And that's one thing that I wish my sons growing up in Indianapolis could have experienced, as opposed to thinking that there are going to be 1,000 different options that are right there for them that they can avail themselves to for fun or their social activities. I think it's healthy to kind of make it on your own a little bit.
We read you were involved with the Indiana Bicentennial. What did you get to do for that?
Yes, I was involved with the Indiana Bicentennial. It was fantastic. Our company, Indiana Farmers Mutual, was one of the main sponsors of the Bicentennial. And in fact, we were one of the main sponsors for the Torch Run, which was the run where people in all communities around the state, all counties, were selected and they carried a torch, which was taken from county to county, which was just a wonderful thing that the state did. And so not only was my company involved in that as a whole, but I also got to be a torch runner. And I was allowed to do that in Terre Haute, Indiana, because that's where I did my undergrad work, and I'm still very active with Indiana State, and I'm on the board of trustees there. So they asked if I would like to carry the torch in Terre Haute, and I said absolutely. So that was an absolute honor. It was wonderful. It was kind of interesting, though, because I was one of the very last ones to carry the torch, and we'd been out there already about 3 hours, and it was about 95 degrees, and the person right in front of me had some sort of a heat stroke or whatever and went down, and the ambulance had to be called. And so you can imagine what that does to your confidence. Then I started thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to be next. But it was just a wonderful event, and we're very proud that our company was one of the main sponsors for that as well.
What did it mean for you to get to work with the Indiana Bicentennial?
Well, it means a lot. My company is all about the state of Indiana. We write business only in the state of Indiana. We've written in the state of Indiana since 1877. And we always say that our niche market, or what we know best, it's the state of Indiana. It's Hoosiers. And we like to say that we are Hoosiers helping Hoosiers. And I'm a Hoosier myself. I was born, raised, educated in this state. I love this state, and it's so meaningful to our company. And so getting to be involved in the Bicentennial, just so wonderful for our company, and personally an honor for me.
Okay. How would you want to be remembered in Indiana's history?
Oh my goodness. It would just be so wonderful and an honor to even think that I would be remembered. I guess I would like to be remembered as somebody that worked really hard and was a Hoosier through and through, and all their life tried to do things to not just better themselves, but to better people around them, to improve the lives of our employees, improve the lives of our customers, our policyholders, our agents around the state, and just try to leave a legacy of improving the quality of life for the people that live here.
You said before that you don't see very many women attorneys. So what would you like to say to those women out there who are trying to climb to the top of their own companies and reach their own dreams?
Well, there are more women attorneys now than there certainly were when I started. And there are more women in business and positions of leadership than there were when I first started. But what I would say to any woman, and maybe this is even applicable to just anyone, but certainly to any woman, go for it, be yourself, never stand back. You don't have to fit a mold. In fact, one of the things that I always told myself is that I'm never going to try to act like something I'm not, dress like something I'm not. I'm a woman, and I'm going to wear high heels and dress like a woman. And I'm going to act like a woman because that's who I am. Because anytime you start trying to be or act like something that you aren't, that's where problems come into play. So just be yourself, be who you are, make good choices, and things will come your way.
Do you have any other advice for someone from a small town who's trying to move up in a successful career like yours?
Wow, that's a good question. First of all, successful careers can occur any place. They can occur in Linton, they can occur in Duggar, they can occur in Bloomington, they can occur in Indianapolis, New York City, wherever. So I think it's really first and foremost just finding what your passion is and finding what you want to lead. What do you really want to do? Because whatever you do in your career, you have to have a passion for it. You have to love what you're leading. And so I would say, just first of all, figure out who you are and what you want and what you really have a passion for, and then go for it. And whether that leads you to a small town, a larger town, or a New York City or a London, that's where your road should be. But first of all, it's all about you figuring it out.
After everything you've been able to accomplish, what's next for you?
What's next for me? there's still so much that I want to accomplish with respect to this company. When I took on the role of CEO 3 years ago, I really had the goal of helping to position this company for the future so that we could be around for another 140 years. And that means a lot. That means being the smart insurance choice for our customers, being able to listen to what they want and need from an insurance company, having the technology that our customers want and need, and of course growing and being more financially sound. So right now, still what's on my plate is to advance this company.
Well, that's all our questions. This has been Susie Ronk and Emma Brunson with Linton-Stockton Student Press interviewing Kim Smith. Thank you.
Thank you.